Welcome back to Crispy's Projects, and in this episode we're going to be tackling some of the electrics. So this is midway through the project. I've only just finished doing a lot of the sound installation. I've got a little bit more to do. We've got a box from 12 Volt Planet. Let's see what's in there. So we've got some lamps, we've got some tools at the ready. More interestingly, what we've got here. So we've got 4 down lights, which is a warm white. So that's going to go there, 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 and there. That position I 100% worked out because it depends on how far the units come out. Let's see what else we've got. So I've got some connections. That's for the Corrado. I need to fit some wiring. Oh, here's my little switches. They are little, aren't they? And a little bit of a fuse box. So I've also got a split charge system, but that's not for this video. So we'll be fitting a leisure battery in the near future. That's going to be underneath the driver's seat. But today I'm going to focus on the other little bits of electrics, just while the thing's stripped. Now I've picked a USB. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's supposed to have 2.4 amps available to each socket. So that makes it a little bit, so that's basically a fast charger on both sides. So that's going to make it more usable. Modern day phones might even be able to power a laptop off that, I'm not too sure. Warm white LEDs. So my theory is I don't want anything too bright. The only time the light's going to be on is going to be at night time. So I'm pretty much going to be going to sleep. And I've got 4 of these, so I'm going to place them strategically once the kitchen's in. If you're ever going to want to control the lights or have USB charging, it's not necessarily over on the kitchen, but next to the bed. So this is where I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it over this side, controls for the lights over here, and I'm going to have some independent circuits. But I also want to partly wired into the factory wiring. So when you open up the doors, we've got some lights. Now these are a little bit tricky, so you can't just connect them direct. The switches are a little bit more complex because it goes back to the central electrics control unit and it comes back and it triggers. So on here you've got 3 wires. So you've got a live, an earth, and a switched earth. So the switched earth is the one that comes on with the lights. So we don't want to disturb any of the switches or the triggers in there, because we still want a warning to work. We want the central locking to work. Earth is going to be down here. The lights are going to be switched from earth. That sounds weird, doesn't it? So instead of applying power, I'm going to apply an earth. So it's going permanently through a fuse that's inside there. So there's not going to be a need for a separate fuse for a whole different circuit. It works, trust me, I've worked it out. So I've got multimeter on there. So this brown that's connected with the black stripe, mine is a 2007 van, is connected back to the control unit. So we can see there, I'm going to close the back door and it drops it down. So that's going to switch off the lights. So the lights for the front doors work a little bit different. So the one that's going to be fitted here runs off a time delay. So the front circuit is slightly different. So it's a different colour wire on there. It's still unearthed because it sees it as a front circuit rather than the back door circuit. So wired it in the same way. It's the brown with the red trace wire. Got 0 volts. Open up the door. Interior lights came on. And we've got power. And we turn it off and we close the door again. So interior light is on. And that slowly switches it off. So I found in my little box of spares, which I've got loads of bits of random bits and pieces, just because I've been doing engine conversion stuff over the years. So bits of random loom, bit of brown wire. If you didn't have something as good as this, because this is actually quite perfect, all you'd want to do is run 30 amp with some like a ring or a fork on the end, and we're going to run it up and across there. This isn't going to be the final fitment. This is just as we're sort of mocking up as we're going through our wiring. She hit it quite lucky finding that piece because it's a good solid earth that's capable of carrying the current. I've got 2 10 amps, which realistically they're probably about 15 amps. They're just rated a little. Factory wiring's always rated a little bit higher than you expect because this is no more than 20 amps with a little cigarette lighter thing. So I want to make sure I've got plenty of ampage to that. Then I can feed the lights and then I can feed the USB charger off the end of that. There's a good earth. That's the socket at minus. Let's put that on there. So then from one of the other little terminals, I've done 1, 2. I've got room for a third one to carry on the daisy chain, but this is going to be for the switches. So I don't know which side that's going to go on. That's going to go on there, isn't it? Then we got a couple of earth switches, and we got the earth sorted for USB charger and that. So just doubled up the wires there. So ideally, we want 20 amp cable for this one, which the 20 amp cable's got to go all the way back. We need 5 amp cable for that one, so I've supplied it with 10. And these, I've checked the ampage on the LEDs. We're looking at about 0.3, 0.4 per circuit, so that's way within spec. So I've got room for a little bit more loading on there. And for now, I'm going to leave this extra wire purely because I've got it. But for now, quite happy with that. So I went into lunch. It started raining, but I was only gone half an hour, and the door's still open, and it's dropped the feed to the interior lights. So that's another good reason to leave some of the factory sort of wiring in there. But the one thing I have thought about is that the 12 volt feed that goes to the lights is off the main battery. It's not off the Leisure. Right, and that is the positive side, so I need to colour mark those with something. But the terminals I've got, these are slightly smaller ones that have come pre-crimped on them. And then this one is the switch live, so I'm going to chop that there. Right, so I've wired that in temporary because I want to do something special with some diodes, but just to test the circuit, I've put a little bit of blue heat shrink on there just to identify that one as the blue one, because these two crimps, even though they're different colours, they're different size ampage bullet connectors on there, and I haven't got any of the smaller ones, only in red. So a little bit of blue is going to help identify it. So let's open it up and see if it works. There we go. That's nice. So what I'm going to do now is extend this bit of wire only to more or less where it is, just leaving extra wire than I actually need, and also extending a separate earth feed that goes down. Unfortunately, I haven't got any really thin wire, so I'm going to have to use red again, which is completely against, but I'm going to mark both sides just to help identify. Cut it about there. I've tested it and it works fine, so I'm going to run through what I've done. I do need another part to make it work, you know,
bear with me,
OEM
it will
spec.
make sense why I'm spending so much time to get rid of one of these little interior lights.
So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. The live comes from the interior light fuse. The earth for this one comes from the control unit that sees the door opening, so it activates that, and it's also able to put the warning light on to tell you that your doors are open. This one is actually wired from the switch, so an earth goes back to the switch because it shares the same live. I know it's confusing, but it does make some sense. So while I've been trying to work out these interiors, I've managed to crack it. So this is going to be a little bit geeky, a little bit confusing. Just trust me. Let me do the wiring first, and then I'll explain what it is and how it works. But it's quite trick. So I've got 2 blocking diodes wired up. So I'm just going to snip them, get them a little bit shorter. I'm going to twist these 2 ends together and solder them up. So this is actually quite sort of, it's basic electronics, but it's quite confusing. A lot of people get put off by electrics. It's not really that complicated once you understand the basic principles. A masking tape on there just to stop the heat shrink from falling down. It's quite fiddly, this, isn't it? Everything's hanging in the air. Still quite hot. Now you've got to remember, I can't give you any technical support on this. I'm just showing you how I'm doing it, because not everyone's going to understand it. And there's probably a lot of professional campervan conversion people out there, no offence to anyone, who are still watching this thinking, what the hell is he doing? Just snip the end off.
Let me just check whether that works. Okay, well, that looks confusing. So what's he going to do with the other wires? So essentially I'm just making a little Y for the electricity to run through. Why is a good question. Well, we'll find out in a minute. See if this actually works. So I open up the back door. Got a light come on. This one doesn't come on. Close it, it goes out. Operate the rocker switch. Please come on. And they both come on. There we go. So the two LEDs are on the same circuit, but can work independently on the back door. You know, I'll talk about over-engineering a simple solution. We'll open up the back door. Let's see this in action. So let's pull a power feed, which is that one. Air feed there. And with the back door open, we have a air feed there. We'll close the back door. And it drops down to almost no voltage, less than a volt leaking through. We go to the other side. We have a full earth. Actually, I need to get that battery on charge, don't I? And I will give a slightly better explanation, I think. We got 12 volts. We got two lights. They're LEDs. Not the best picture. So you get 12 volts. Two blocking diodes. So we got two earths there. So that's not exactly the best picture. It is starting to rain here. So we've got two blocking diodes. And that one's the door. And that one's the switch. So we'll just change that a little bit. So that still doesn't make it any more simpler. So we've got our 12 volts that are feeding both. So when the interior door, so it's normal standard central locking switches, it's earth, the current can flow into there. So the interior light will come on. So that's that single light. But then when I switch the switch over here, it allows the current to go that way, allowing both of these to switch on, but the current won't flow back to here and confuse the ECU by applying some voltage back onto there, or basically they flow a current back to earth from somewhere else. So I've essentially made a flux capacitor to go in the van on a small scale. So when this hits 88 degrees, it will probably then hit 89. So next up is to do the wiring for these sockets. So we've got a 10 amp, well it's 9 point whatever it is. So 10 amp feed on that one. And I need a 20 amp on feed on this one. So I'm going to run 30 amp cable to this one and 10 amp cable to this one. Two separate fuses that need to go up along. Now I've had a brainwave because I'm hoping, still not decided yet really, to have one flush bit of ply in there without using the poppers. So it's actually screwed on. So the carpet comes nice and flush round. For now, I'm going to run a little bit of conduit in there so I can at least access it through the roof and run all the wires through there. So if I've ever got to do any wiring back to this control panel that's going to be here, I don't think I will. I can do it through the roof because the roof will be removable. But I need to run the wires across and over and down over to where the leisure battery is going to be in that sort of area. A little bit of a flexible spring, so I'm going to run that through, let it chase the wire. Yeah, it's come through to me. Look at that. That's perfect, that is. So I'm going to start from over here, leaving plenty of cable. I know it's going to run underneath there. Just keep it tight. It's going to run up there. So that is about level, so I'm going to need to pull some more cable through. If anything, I've left too much cable on that side, which I'm quite happy with. This is the more important bit for now. As long as I've got too much on there, I can run that along there. We have a majority of the wiring that goes to this back pretty much done. So I've just spent a little bit of time just tidying up this wiring. So just putting a little bit as insulation tape every so often, run it along where the factory wiring is, all the way across. So these lights, it's worth noting, the way I've wired it in, so the red switch that gives the permanent live to the little interior lights works slightly differently. It's not permanent live. It runs off the control module. So I'm going to have to put a little bit of a relay in to the leisure battery when I get the leisure battery, because it only stays on for half an hour. And that's basically to save your interior lights from draining your batteries. So left the door open again. So the relay I'm going to be putting in is essentially, draw this right. This is an absolute terrible relay. So the relay, when the ECU, the central locking, well, it's the central electrics on this one, switches on its 12s. No, I've got that the wrong way around. This is where it gets really, really geeky, because I work this all out in my head. So when the ECU sees one of the doors being opened, so the front doors, side doors, it switches on its 12-volt feed, which will then power on the relay, which will move this over, so it will be fed from the car battery, van battery. But then when it's switched off after it's 30 minutes, I think we established, or 30 minutes-ish, it then reverts back to the leisure battery. So when you switch one of these switches on, to switch on these lights, it's drawing electricity from the leisure battery, not van 12 volts. Trust me, it works. It looks really complicated. I'm not too sure about those pictures, but hey-o, it works. So think about subscribing, because hopefully this is not that much more complicated. This isn't a science lesson. So hopefully some of you actually understand that. Paul, you will definitely understand it, because I ran this one past you and you weren't quite sure where I was going with it. But that is essentially it. Way to overcomplex a simple problem that people wouldn't think it was a problem. It's now live. So let's just see it functioning. So that switches on with the door, single one, and then with the switch, we got the other one. So those two will stay on with the switch once the door's open. So we look at the interior lights. Interior light bit is on. So when the interior light does fade off, the way I've got it wired in, it will stay on. I've got the seat replaced, which I'm going to do in a future video. So the leisure battery is going to be down there. So yes, I've replaced this driver's seat, and it's a lot more nicer on. It's just a little temporary bracket at the moment, but I'm going to take you to future me, who's going to tell you subscribe so you don't miss fitting this. So the van may look a little bit different. So I'm really happy with the results. It's exactly what I want. It adds to the functionality. I've got rid of the actual lamp in the back, and the more observant of you will see that it is actually fitted into the lamp. So one of the previous videos, I've actually fitted this roof, and I just wanted to run back and actually go through the electrics of it, because it just seemed quite complicated really. And part of the next video is going to be actually fitting the leisure battery. But thanks very much for watching. Share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da! I best come get some dinner, hadn't I? Starting to get hungry. Got that. To me, to you. to you, to me.